from the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hey everybody, I'm Pete Sanchez and you're listening to Talking Catholic. We're here in the vault today. We got four. We're a round table of four. I'm here with Mike Walsh. Mike, how are you?
Very good. We have a nice big group today. Hey, look at
we
that.
do.
Look at that. I can finally yell at myself. I forgot to turn on my own mic.
Oh,
Look at that. I was good about making sure everyone else tested their mics, and I never tested my own mic. Look at that. Oh,
But
man.
you caught it.
I knew
But I
there'd be a
did.
day.
That's important.
You caught it.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's good.
We got Father Chris Mann here, pastor in Christ the Redeemer and Atco.
Semper Fi.
Yes.
And former.
Marines.
Oh, not former. What? Not former Marine. It's always a Marine. Never a
Once a
former
Marine, always a Marine.
That's right. Never
Yes.
a former
Marine
Marine.
with different orders now.
That's right.
And Laurie Power.
Hi, Pete.
How are you? I just saw you.
I
You were
know.
just back here, my Talking Saints co-host. How are you?
I'm great.
That's right. You guys just powered
Today's
through.
our feast day at Christ the Redeemer, so I'm extra great today.
Wow.
Actually,
Well,
tomorrow is the
wonderful.
feast day, the 22nd. No, today's the 23rd.
Today's the 23rd,
Today's
Father?
the 23rd. That's right. I only have Mass in a couple of hours.
And for anybody listening right now,
myself.
yes, we did record this a week ahead of time. So for anyone who's wondering.
So,
they
Because
talking
I am
about?
actually going to be away next week, so we're banking this one a week early. So
well, I got something for all of you. Why did the vampire like reading the Catholic Star Herald newspaper?
Because he likes Pete Sanchez.
Well, that too, but no, he heard it had good circulation.
Oh,
That
that's
is-
bloody bad.
oof.
So that's kind of appropriate for what we're going to try to do today. This is going up the week of Halloween and All
That's
Saints Day.
That's right.
So it just thought,
An appropriate joke for an appropriate time, Pete.
yes, I'm excited. But Laurie, we got an event coming up. Can you speak about your event? You or Father Chris want to talk about what's going on at Christ the Redeemer this weekend?
Sure. On November 3rd, we are hosting the 177 Project. This is a project initiated by Adoration Artists, a group of Catholic musicians that have come together, and they want to bring adoration to every diocese in the United States. That's why it's called 177. They'll be here. They're starting with Rosary, then there will be a Holy Hour with music, and then a free concert. So still have tickets available. It is free, but tickets are required.
And of course, you can catch our parish Mass at 4:30 just before that as well.
Oh, okay. So what time does it start?
The event itself is 6:45. Doors open at 6:15.
But the Mass is at 4:30. So
Yes.
Okay, so come for the Mass and stay for
Exactly,
the
yeah.
adoration. And
Yes.
Wonderful. And what's your parish website? People have more info?
ChristTheRedeemer.us. ChristTheRedeemer.us. Very straightforward.
Okay. Thank you so much. Well, looking forward to that. And then the next day, Sunday, November 4th, in Sewell, New Jersey, at Church of the Holy Family, there's a Mass of healing, or a Mass of hope, thanksgiving, and remembrance for cancer patients, survivors, and families who have lost a loved one to cancer. Coming out to this to find healing and support. Father Robert Hughes, the Vicar General of the Diocese, will celebrate the Mass. And during the Mass, there will be a sacrament of the anointing of the sick to those who desire its grace and healing. And there will be time for fellowship and refreshments after Mass. And again, Church of the Holy Family, 226 Herfield Road in Sewell. RSVP to Anne Marie Perillo at 856-583-6121 or annemarie.perillo@camdendiocese.org. As all these announcements can be found at camdendiocese.org. On the right-hand side, there's a calendar of events. And coming up Thursday, November 8th, this looks really neat. The Black Catholic History Month event, sponsored by the Diocese of Camden's Black Catholic Ministries and Cultural Diversity, is having a viewing of the movie Two Suitcases, the story of St. Josephine Bakhita. And born in 1869 in the African country of Sudan, she was taken away by Arab slave traders when she was just a child. And she endured beating. She was sold many times, beaten by her slave owners. Finally, in 1883, she was purchased by an Italian consulate agent who was much kinder to her than her past owners were. And this woman is now a saint, and find out how she became Sister Josephine and was declared a saint by St. John Paul II in 2000. Again, Two Suitcases is going to be, and there will be dinner and with the movie. Dinner at 6 p.m., a movie and discussion at 7 to 9, facilitated by Monsignor Leonard Scott. This is at St. Bridget's Hall, 125 Church Street in Glassboro, New Jersey, 08028-2517, and register by Friday, November 2nd. For more information, contact the Black Catholic Ministries and Cultural Diversity Secretary, Joanne DeGennaro, 856-583-2904. Two Suitcases, the story of St. Joseph and Bakita at St. Bridget Hall in Glassboro. And then this is neat. I'm excited for this. Have you, Laurie and Father Chris, have you been to the Catholic Business Network breakfast?
I've not
I've
yet,
never been
no.
to it, but I've heard of it.
Well, it's great. Mike and I have been a few times. It's Catholic Business Network is a network of individuals who, business leaders, and they come out once a month to Woodcrest Country Club. It's I think, Mike, is it like the first or second Friday or very?
It's usually the second Friday of the month.
Yeah, it's from 7. It starts at 7:30 a.m. And this talk actually. I met this woman a few years ago, Suzanne LaFranchi. She was a former chief White House correspondent for EWTN News Nightly, and she was a reporter and anchor at 6 ABC and CBS. So she's going to be the next guest speaker. She lives in this area. It's going to be a perfect post-election day discussion with Suzanne LaFranchi. So come on out to that, RSVP. To RSVP, you can email sjcbn@comcast.net. And again, we have more links to this on our website.
Yeah, they also have a dedicated webpage. I can't remember what the name of it is off the top of my head, what the URL address is. But if you just type in Catholic Business Network of South Jersey into your Google search engine, it'll find it there. Or, like you mentioned, go to the Camden Diocese events page and you'll find it there.
Yeah. That's again Friday, November 9th at 7:30 a.m.
And that really is a good event. If you're a Catholic business person and you haven't had a chance to come to it yet, I strongly encourage it.
I agree. The breakfast is pretty good too.
Oh, the breakfast is outstanding. Even during Lent, when they take the bacon away, it's outstanding. So you know it's got to be good.
They don't give you like tofu bacon or something like that?
No.
That should be a mortal sin.
Yeah, it is terrible.
I don't know. I love eggs and I love breakfast. So they have bagels, they have croissants. It's
really good baked goods. That's on top of everything else. Yeah. You don't get skinny going to that place, but if you can, fight the urge to eat all the food, you'll be okay. But yeah, it's always a great event. It's always well attended. So I strongly encourage it.
Yeah. And then also November 17th is in Sacred Heart of Vineland. There's going to be a retreat day. Called to be Holy is a theme offered by the Office of Lay Ministry Formation. The presenter will be Mary Neary, and the cost is $25 for information or registration for this. November 17th, 2018, call 856-583-2906 or email colleen.mayhew@camdendiocese.org. Then, Mike, you and I just found out about this event today. I'm excited about this. This is one of the things that's been going on this year, ever since September 2017, Pope Francis began this Share the Journey campaign, how we can accompany our migrant refugee brothers and sisters and basically heed the gospel call to, look beyond the needs of ourselves and help look to the needs of others and accompany, welcome the stranger, build a culture of encounter. And in this vein, the Hispanic Ministry Office of the Diocese of Camden is sponsoring, they're celebrating Share the Journey celebration on Sunday, December 2nd with Bishop Dennis Sullivan. This is going to be at Divine Mercy Parish in Vineland, 23 West Chestnut Avenue. And Bishop Sullivan will be the celebrant. And what's neat, too, is there will be a torch procession to remember Our Lady of Guadalupe, whose feast day is December 12th. Mm-hmm. So this will just be a nice day. There'll be fellowship, there'll be food, there'll be Eucharistic celebration, a procession. It's going to be an awesome day. I'm excited for this. I have this on my calendar. For more information, call 856-583-6170 or email Norma Guzman, norma.guzman@camdendiocese.org. And as again, all these, you can find on CamdenDiocese.org. And Mike, are we gonna?
Oh no, we got one more.
Yeah,
we got one chambered from Laurie. Since we forgot to bring up the piece of paper with us.
I'm sorry, Laurie.
Sure.
What do we got going on? What else?
The CFR Sisters are hosting an Advent Day of Reflection. So that'll be Saturday, December 8th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at St. Michael's Church. And that'll include Mass, a talk by a CFR friar, lunch, Eucharistic adoration, confession, and healing service. So that's open to all ages, and it is free.
And if you've never been to one of the CFR Sisters services or masses or spiritual events, I really recommend it because they really do a great job of helping you connect with your spirituality in ways that you may not have thought of before. So it's always great.
Yeah, so speaking of connecting to spirituality, Advent is a great time to do that. Mm-hmm. So we have our Advent mission coming up at Christ the Redeemer. So I'm going to shamelessly put in a plug for our own parish.
Sure.
And it's the 26th, 27th, and 28th of November, headed up by a Dominican friar by the name of Father William Garrett. We hosted him a couple years ago in Woodbury Heights. Great priest, great speaker, musician besides. So not only does he educate us on our faith, he helps to entertain us slightly a bit. And the tail end of that, we'll have our cantata on December the 1st, which is a Saturday at 3 p.m. at Christ the Redeemer Church as well. So ChristTheRedeemer.us, check it out, and like us on Facebook. I must have taken lessons from Mike Walsh or something here.
Oh, I don't know. I think you're a natural.
I've been called many things.
No, I think you're a natural. And that's we're a little far out. I mean, we're basically doing this during Halloween week, and everyone gets annoyed when you promote the Christmas season during before Halloween's even rolled around yet. But one thing I really am going to try and do this year is really do a little bit more focusing on my spirituality during Advent, which is what it's there for. And I will admit the last several years, and more than the last several years, I've been sort of lost in the secularization of that Advent season and the Christmas holiday. And I really want to try and focus that. And those Advent reflection opportunities, that's a great way of being able to do that. So I'm going to, in addition to everything else I strongly encourage you to do, I'm going to strongly encourage everyone, take a moment out. We're good about doing that during Lent. We're not particularly good doing that during Advent. So it might be a good time to give that a try.
But we're going to give it a try during the Halloween season too, because our theme today is inspired by Pete Sanchez.
Oh, is it we wanted to talk because you gave a talk on this last week, I understand.
Yes, I was asked to give a talk on angels and demons, and not the book by Dan Brown, by the way.
When I was trying to Google...
That was a waste of paper.
I was Googling angels and demons. That's the first thing that came up, is the reviews of that movie from, So what can you... So in this season, there's a few movies, of course, that everybody talks about around this year. The Exorcist. There's a new one, The Nun. Did you hear about this?
I did hear about that. Yeah.
That is from another movie, a series called The Conjuring.
Okay.
So what is it?
I really got to surf channels a little bit more.
If you go, well...
I have no idea what you're talking about. But so just a little bit of background. A couple of weeks ago, I was contacted by a new group that's forming in the diocese called Catalyst out at St. Rose of Lima in Haddon Heights, and it's a young adult group, and little to my knowledge did I know that I was actually their kickoff speaker. They never told me that until I got there, so I was like, this whole thing floats on me or not. But they choose as the topic, angels and demons. Like, I should know something about this, right? So I had to really scramble to kind of pull some thoughts together. And two things came to mind when I was preparing for it. One was a story that goes back to when I was in seminary. When I was in seminary, I had a class on wisdom literature, and I won't name the names or anything like that, but I went to Dunwoody up in New York. And a conversation ensued in one of my classes during that class on wisdom literature about how the Jewish people at that time did not believe in Satan or satanic spirits, angels and demons, essentially. And so, of course, it led to a lively discussion in the class. And, so I was pointing out that there's many scripture references to angels and demons in Scripture. And the teacher at the time said, well, those are basically just literary forms. So then I said, but wait a minute. I says, Jesus spent 40 days in the desert, and he was being tempted by a literary form. So people were like, no, and and Jesus cast out many literary forms, or were they demons? So clearly Jesus believed, in the ancient Jewish religion that there were demons, because he cast them out and he was tempted by them himself. And of course we know the biblical accounts of the Annunciation, with the angel Gabriel coming to Our Lady in Luke's Gospel and appearing in dreams to the wise men and to St. Joseph in St. Matthew's Gospel. So there's been manifestations of angels as well. And of course we know when Jesus was tempted in the desert that he was assisted by angels at the end of it all. So and the other thing, put Jesus aside for a moment, and don't tell anybody I said that. But when the Jews saw Jesus casting out these demons, they said it was by the power of Beelzebul, the prince of demons. So clearly, not only did Jesus believe in these things, but the people around him believed in the demons. So they're actually at the level of teaching in our church called the Doctrina Fide, or Doctrina de Fide, meaning that it's Catholic doctrine. You have to believe it if you're going to consider yourself a Catholic. There's many levels of teaching in the church for different sorts of teachings. Some are commonly accepted Catholic teaching that's like universally accepted, but it doesn't reach that level of having been defined to the point of you have to believe this, kind of like the Trinity, the Incarnation, the Annunciation, all these different things. We have to believe these things. So the question is then, what is an angel or what is a demon? So basically, when God created, God is a personal being. So we say God is a pure spirit. So he doesn't have any physicality to him, no materiality. He's a pure spirit, and he's a trinity of three divine persons: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So that's one kind of person we speak of. We speak of divine persons. So there's only three of them in all outside of creation. Actually, they're not even in the created order. So the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. So our Trinitarian faith is that there's one divine being who's God, and he exists as three divine persons: the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. The second kind of person we think of is very simple. They're human persons. That's us, right? We are created for a relationship. A person has an intellect and a will. So they're created for knowledge and for choice and for love. Right, so we're created in the image and likeness of God. So we are spiritual in the sense that we have a spiritual soul that is immortal, that will live on forever and ever, will never go out of existence. And we have a physical reality to us. So we're a composite being. So we're not pure spirit, like God is pure spirit. And so our spiritual nature is the part of us that is our soul, and then our physical is our body. And of course, these are created to be together. That's the whole point of the resurrection. At the end of time, our body and our soul will be reconnected, because we're not meant to be disembodied spirits. That's an unnatural state for the human person. In between the divine persons that are uncreated and the created persons that are human with a physical body and a spiritual soul, we have these non-corporeal spiritual beings, meaning that they don't have a body and they are created. So they're called angels. So angels exist as superior beings to the human person. So whereas we have an intellect to know things through rationality, their intellect, an angelic intellect, is infused knowledge. So they get their knowledge from God directly. So in the beginning of creation, there was a test. So we know the test of Adam and Eve in the garden. We know that they made a choice to sin. They were deceived. So human intellect, even though it was in a perfected form at that point in creation, could be deceived. But an angelic intellect is infused with the immediate knowledge of all causes and ends and everything. And so when the angels were shown a vision at the beginning, which is actually in Scripture, Revelations chapter 12, there's the manifestation of our Blessed Lady. She's with child, and she's about to give birth, and the dragon, Satan, emerges and wants to devour the child. Right? He rejects the idea, the very notion that God would become one of our human beings. You come to share in the human nature. Satan rejected that because he thought, well, if you're going to become something less than God, then why don't you share in the angelic nature? It's like it was pride, right? And he refused to serve. And at that moment, there was the sweeping of a third of the angels. Now they become devils. And Satan, who was a seraph angel, burning with brightness and whatever, became the prince of darkness.
His name was Lucifer. Which
Lucifer, the bearer of light.
Bearer of light, yeah, in Latin.
That's correct, yeah. So what's interesting to note is that immediately after this happens and God creates the garden and the physical order of things, and then the human person through Adam and then Eve, who does Satan go to tempt? He sort of just overlooks Adam. He goes straight for the woman, right? Because it's through her, he thinks, that this incarnate God is going to come into the world, right? And so he thinks to himself that if he could destroy this woman, get her to disobey God or whatever, that he will thwart God's plan. He'll be the victor. Little does he know that Eve was not our Blessed Lady. So he deceives her, and she falls, and the original sin enters the world, and so on and so forth. But there's a lot more to it, but I don't want to dominate all the airtime here. So, maybe I stimulated some questions or thoughts.
Well, just so talking about, I think you clarified a point for me. So Satan, who was Lucifer, was the seraph angel. He had the fall from heaven, and he became a demon.
Yes.
I guess so. At that point, does demon have a definition?
It's a fallen angel, basically. That's how I would define it. I don't know if there's a technical definition, but the interesting thing about that is that in antiquity there was a whole series of different groups that were called Gnostics, collectively known as Gnostics. They believed in they called them the aeons, but they were spiritual beings of various sorts. There's not one Gnostic school of thought. There's various ones, and some of them were dualistic, where they believed there was a co-equal uncreated God and an evil God called a demiurge, right? So in some of those ancient schools, the satanic figure would be sort of on par with God. So it would be another equal being to God, and the material world was created by this demiurge, Satan, as we would know that, and all material was evil, right? So they only valued what was spiritual, and so that was one manifestation of that. But there was also like the Cathari. This would be maybe your purview,
Keep going,
Laurie,
Father,
because
but yes, the Dominicans fought
school
the
of thought.
Catholics.
But they actually believed that Jesus was not the Son of God, but an incarnate angel. So they had all these kind of twisted thoughts, which
and these are all heresies. I don't know that you made that clear.
Yes.
Okay.
No, of course. I was getting to that.
Okay, good.
So this actually led the church to have to define what angels are and what demons are and all of that. And that's how they came to be Doctrina de Fide. So if I could just read very briefly, maybe I'll get Laurie to read it from the Lateran IV document called Firmitier from the Lateran IV Council, which is an ecumenical council back in the 13th century.
We firmly believe and straightforwardly confess that one alone is true God, one principle of all that is, creator of all things visible and invisible, spiritual and corporeal, who is by his omnipotent power, together with the beginning of time, formed from nothing, both kinds of creature, the spiritual and the corporeal, the angelic, that is, and the sensible, and then the human, constituted of spirit and body as if common to both. For the devil and other demons have indeed been created by God as good by nature, but they of themselves became evil. Man, however, sinned at the suggestion of the devil.
So what's important there is that there was only one creative being. There wasn't this dualistic demiurge or what have you, who was an uncreated being like God, who was kind of a bad God. One creative being, and God created all that is, including the angels that became the demons. So the angels are not absolutely, the demons, I should say, are not absolutely evil in the sense that the fact of their being, that they got their being from God, they have what's called in philosophy ontological goodness, meaning that the fact that they are is better than that they're not. They have goodness in the sense that God made them, because God doesn't create anything evil. You're familiar with Lord of the Rings. I know you've got to be familiar with Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
So let's put this in a different light. So all the beings Tolkien was very Catholic in his thinking, and all the beings that are evil or bad beings, how did they start out in Lord of the Rings?
Good.
They started out as good, and they became like the orcs, I believe, were elves, right?
Yeah.
And they became ugly. That's basically the same reality that we're talking about. So that God created these angelic beings, and they became ugly and vicious through their own choice. So what I started to say earlier too was that there was two stories that came to mind when I was asked this. The second story was I was taking a class way back when I got out of the Marines. I was in Rowan, Glassboro State at the time, and there was an experiencing art class there. And there was a smart aleck art teacher who, there was a couple of us who were manifest Christians, and I was Catholic in the class, and somehow the topic came up about the devil. And he says, "You don't believe in a little man with red suit and horns and a pitchfork and an arrow for a tail?" That's not what we believe.
Oh, you mean he doesn't live in the Pine Barrens?
That's right. Yeah. And nor do we believe that angels are cherubic-looking little things, like little puffy little babies with golden wings and a harp and all that. They're pure spirit. They have no physical manifestation. If they manifest themselves physically as they have in the scriptures, that's just as unnatural to an angel to take on a bodily form, whether it be a serpent, whether it be in the form of a friend that talked to Abraham. It's just as unnatural for an angel to have a body as it is for a human person to have no body. So they did that just to accommodate our human perception at times, even to bathe themselves in light. It's a physical thing, light. So,
and I think it's important too, talking about evil. There is always, you hear, why does God allow evil in this world? And it has a lot to do with free will, right?
It does.
And that's how God is. And I think I'm losing it, but Aquinas, he makes a distinction between will and free will. Do you remember that, or Laurie?
Hmm.
I'm not familiar with the distinction other than the fact that free will would mean that we have the freedom to make choices. Will might be, I suppose it could imply it's a programmed will. It could be maybe not something less than free. So I'm not sure of the distinction that you're making.
I didn't mean to.
No, that's fine. I'm not. I'm a devout Franciscan, so by training. So believe that she should know. She was the Dominican. I was trained in the Franciscan school, so I shouldn't necessarily know this stuff.
Well, and
I'm curious, Laurie. I mean, sort of in your past. I mean, you're a strong Catholic leader in South Jersey.
Yes.
What kind of a perspective do you have on angels and demons?
Angels and demons. Well, there's sort of a false notion, I think, that especially children have, but I think maybe we also grow up and keep it as adults, that like in this battle between good and evil, like God and the devil are somehow equal. And that's totally false because, as Father just explained, the devil is a creature. So, we don't have to worry about that, like, God's going to lose. God has the upper hand at all times. And of course, we have victory in Christ. So I think many of the saints basically just, whatever, devil, like, get away from me. I belong to Jesus. They didn't really give him much. Even those that were harassed by the devil had such great faith that Christ had conquered. We don't really have to worry. So I'm at peace.
What about those of us who aren't saints?
Who could be Mike?
Who could be easily manipulated by the devil?
Well, you're right. I mean he just wants us to sin, so it'll destroy us, right? Yeah. So the best way to protect yourself against evil is to be holy. Indeed, get sin out of your life. And there you go.
Bishop Sullivan, I guess it was it last year? No, it might have been 2 years ago. During the confirmation cycle 2 years ago, his homily was very much focused on the dangers of the devil. And he, at every confirmation, he preached on that very topic. Wow. And it was an interesting sermon to be sitting in the audience for. My niece happened to be getting confirmed that year. And, it was a very strongly worded sermon in the sense that he said, listen, the devil is absolutely a real thing.
Yes.
And you can be easily manipulated by him if you allow yourself to. If you're not doing the physical things, coming to Mass on a regular basis.
Yes.
But if your mind is not properly oriented to defend yourself against Satan and his minions.
Or if you open yourself up to these things, and I have seen this a lot lately, even in my hometown, there's 2 events this month. Come and like sip and shop with a psychic, and they're reading tarot cards, or come and contact your dead relatives. And there are Catholics that I see on Facebook that are going to these things, and usually I don't get into Facebook conflicts, but here I post something and I say, please do not do this. This is dangerous. You could be opening yourself up to demons, not to your deceased relatives. Don't get involved in this. And people say, no, it'll be fine. It's just for fun. No, it's not fun. It's dangerous.
Boards, they say. And that's scary stuff, too.
Well, that's how The Exorcist happened, right? The kid was possessed through the impetus of a Ouija board.
Oh.
But some of these things, like these tarot cards, for example, they have less odious-seeming kind of forms of them. Like when I was living in Ireland, they had what were called angel cards, which are basically tarot cards that have angelic symbols on them, and that's basically the same thing. A rose by any other name would smell as sweet, right? And remember, Satan is the father of lies, so he's always going to make us think that something that we do is good. You mentioned about seances and all that sort of stuff. You got to realize when, a spirit poses as your loved one, they would know the things of time. They can see beyond the temporal veil that separates time and eternity. So you say, well, this spirit knew something that only Aunt Bessie would know. Well, of course, because he can see it. It's like they're watching us all the time, But we also have, there's different choirs of angels, and, those that we simply call angels are called guardian angels. We have, gives us pause to think every once in a while. How many people there are in the world? Over 6 billion right now. If you probably get closer to 7 or 8 billion if you take all of human history, and it might get more and more as time goes on. But to think each and every one, God created a specific angel just for each person. That's a pretty profound thing. Your soul must be pretty important to God if He gives you such an important, defender. And there's a lot more angels than there are demons. Just to point that out, because only a third fell from the sky. So, and on that note, we don't get more angels when we die. So when we go to heaven, we don't get wings. Contrary to the little bell ringing and It's a Wonderful Life.
We become
Angel
saints,
you don't get
not
your wings.
angels.
It's like those are called saints. And Laurie has been doing a lot of talks about saints, and we had
Peter and I,
different ones mentioned here today. But but you don't become an angel. We'll get our body back. We'll be just like we are in our best form when we get there.
You mean I'm not getting wings?
You're not what? Oh, you're not getting wings, no.
Oh,
maybe
man,
you,
I was
Pete.
looking forward to
maybe
that.
you.
Well, one of the things you talked about, Lord of the Rings, one of my favorite movies, and this concept of evil, and what I love too with what Tolkien did is the power of corruption and the rings. That you look at the people who are the ring bearers, who decide to take it on. They're the humblest of creatures, the hobbits, the little lowly who love the earth, who love peace, who are just happy, and they're simple. And I think that says something to who we should be, because that's the best, because the age of men can get very corrupted, and that's what happened. And you saw what it did. Well, Gollum was a hobbit, but he was corrupted by greed. Yep. And you saw what it did to his soul and to his physical appearance. But it's beautiful to, the chosen and the characters realize that really Frodo is one of the only people, and before him Bilbo, that can get the ring. Just how we should be it goes back to what we think only children can enter the kingdom of heaven. We have to have that humility of heart and spirit.
But I do think it's important to understand that there is a spiritual war going on around us.
Yeah.
It's not deterministic in the sense that, as Laurie kind of pointed out, well, we win because, God is God and they're all created beings. In the end, He just has to give them the divine smackdown and they'll be done, right? So that's going to happen. But we live in time and space, and these things are going on around us. And so we need to have some weapons against these things. I can't help but think of Brett Kavanaugh. They had in the news the other day how these witches are trying to put a hex on him.
Oh,
so
I read
people
that.
actually
Yeah.
believe
Yeah.
this. Well, and it's true.
It's
I mean,
true,
they
yeah.
can do this sort of stuff. So if I was Brett, I'd be seriously praying, fasting, and doing almsgiving right now, because those are our spiritual weapons. So prayer, basically is to give our worship to God. Well, what do we say that Satan said at the very beginning? I will not serve. I'm not going to serve this God. So worship means that we're recognizing our creatureliness, and God is godly in his godliness, and he's God and we're not. So by our acts of adoration with the Holy Communion as well, think about it. Adoration, we're adoring Jesus in the Eucharist, his flesh, his blood, right? The very thing that Satan rejected at the very beginning. Kills him. He hates it. He hates it, right? And then we receive that into us in Holy Communion, right? And then, of course, the Rosary, it's a compendium of the Scriptures. So we learn all about our saving truths through the Rosary. And we draw closer to Christ and our Blessed Lady. There's also the prayers to our guardian angel and to St. Michael the Archangel. So when I was I wasn't living in a friary at this point when this started happening, but our custom as Franciscan Friars of the Renewal was that we would pray the St. Michael prayer every night before we go to bed at the end of our rosary. And the custom started because there were doors slamming in one of the friaries, St. Crispin's, right? They were just boom, boom, boom. So obviously the devil didn't like what was going on in the South Bronx in those days, and now in Atlantic City with our CFR sisters. But anyway, that stopped as a result of that. So very powerful prayers, right? Fasting. It trains us to subordinate our appetites and our will to God. Again, Satan didn't want to serve God. Right, and we're tempted through our appetites most often. How was Adam and Eve tempted? See how beautiful that fruit is. How much it must taste good. But yet it was poison. And then almsgiving is the self-sacrifice of ourselves for the good of others. Basically, Satan is a consummate narcissist. He only is interested in himself, his kingdom, his power, but he only seeks to destroy others. But by almsgiving, we're doing just the opposite. We're being Christ-like and seeking the good of others, even sometimes over and above and beyond ourselves. Mm-hmm. The most powerful weapons we have, St. Padre Pio used to call the Rosary a weapon.
Yes.
You mentioned you're going to be in Heathrow pretty soon. I was going through Heathrow one time, and I had my rosary when I was still a Franciscan in those days, and it was, and they always ask you when you go through these security checks, do you have any weapons on you? And I almost stepped out and said, yes, I have my rosary. And I thought the better of it. I said, nah, this is not the time to do this.
Good
Actually,
point.
I think it was Gatwick Airport, but it was in England.
Yeah. I don't bring a weapon when I travel anywhere nowadays, but I will have my rosary on me. I assure you of that. I'm curious in sort of in your time as a missionary back in the day. You spent a lot of time in areas that certainly had different influences on there. Was demonic possession or demonism something that existed in those non-Catholic areas?
I've heard some really interesting stories down in South America or Central America in Honduras, and I know Father Bob Lombardo was once involved in an exorcism in Panama, I think it was. Mm-hmm. The only thing I came across was in Africa and Sudan. We were doing a parish mission it was like a street mission, and this guy came up and we had the Blessed Sacrament, and he was visibly bothered by it, and he kind of fell down, and it was kind of. But we just got the Blessed Sacrament, just kind of put it there, and eventually the guy had to leave. But there was no exorcism.
Right.
So exorcisms can't happen without the permission of a bishop. So we can pray for protection against evil, but we can't do exorcisms without episcopal appointment.
And who when you say, appointed exorcist, in what capacity would somebody be an would they, I imagine an exorcist being somebody who's an older priest, who's strong in their faith. Who would it be?
Well, I would presume it's somebody who has a reputation for holiness and someone who has a formation in demonology and understands how these things work. There is an official rite in the church, the rite of exorcism, that was revised some years ago. Some people argue that the exorcism has to be in Latin, and because the devil only responds in Latin. I said, but I don't think Jesus was casting out demons in Latin, so I don't know. I'm not an exorcist. I don't have that formation, so I don't know. why Latin would be any more persuasive than Aramaic or English or any other language. I would always think German would be a good language to do an exorcism. It just has the sound.
That's right. Very, very harsh.
You're crushed. Achtung. But you have to follow the rituals. They make a distinction between what are called minor exorcisms and major exorcisms. Minor exorcism is what sometimes we simply call deliverance prayer. Sometimes you'd be at a charismatic meeting and somebody will be praying for protection against evil or what have you. You could say that the St. Michael's prayer, when we pray that, is praying for like a minor exorcism, just to be protected from evil and that sort of thing. Bless ourselves with holy water. It protects us from evil. But that's a very different category of thing than this major exorcism. Most dioceses have people who are identified as exorcists, even if they don't have one that's officially appointed at any given moment. I'm sure they know who they could go to. Interesting story. When I was a friar I was in seminary at the time, and I was at St. Leopold's Friary. I go and I was what's called the porter, the guy that checks the door when it rings and answers the phone. So I came in from school, so I had to go check all the messages. And there's Cardinal Egan, God rest his soul, on our answer machine. How often do you get a cardinal on your answer machine, right? Mm-hmm. Right. And he was calling for Father Andrew Apostoli. And turns out that he wanted Father Andrew Apostoli to help in an exorcism. He wasn't the exorcist, but he wanted him present when this thing was going on and whatever. It was a real deal thing up in the Archdiocese of New York. So,
wow, he just passed away, Father Andrew, about a year ago.
More or less, yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He was well known, well revered by the CFRs in Atlantic City, I know. And with just speaking again about what is the appeal of these movies and pop culture? You hear about The Exorcist. You talk about The Nun, which is The Conjuring, Paranormal Activity, which is where these spirits visit. This house.
I think my better question would be, in either of your, past, have you ever known a pop culture reference to get it right when it comes to angels and demons? I mean, we've all sort of vilified the book Angels and Demons and the movie Angels and Demons and the spin-off from that. And I've often been curious, are there representations of angels and demons that might be accurate, or at least somewhere in the neighborhood of accurate?
That's a good question. I don't really know. I mean, basically, essentially, you're trying to use human means to explain something that's supernatural. Mm-hmm. So by definition, it's almost like asking, has anybody got Jesus absolutely right? Yeah, right. In depicting him. I mean, it's an impossible task. Yeah. So I think we tend to sensationalize. So
you're saying
things.
John Legend didn't get it right in the made-for-TV
Probably
musical?
not.
Okay.
Probably not. I'm going to go on a limb. Jesus Christ Superstar was not how Jesus. He wasn't a hippie.
That's because I mean that's kind of at the core of your question, Pete. And I know a lot of people who particularly like. I always get a kick out of it anytime I see Catholicism enter into pop culture. Particularly if it's done appropriately and not using Catholicism as a punching bag. Yeah. I just recently was watching something that has a through line of Catholicism in it, and I know it'll go off. This is part of a series I'm watching right now, and I'm certain it's going to go off the rails at some point. But right now, it's on the rail, and I'm like, oh, good. I'm glad that Catholicism is being represented positively. Yeah. And so but a lot of times because Pete, it's so open to interpretation, which is why Angels and Demons kind of movies appeal to Hollywood, because you can manipulate it in any way. I mean, I will admit that I jokingly said that my formation when it comes to Angels and Demons is limited to The Exorcist and the movie Michael. But I really liked the movie Michael, and I kind of liked sort of the representation of Michael, we assume the Archangel, played by
John Travolta.
Travolta. And it was done in a way, and I at the end it all goes off the rails and it goes in weird ways. But I was like, oh, there's a concept to this. And even the movie City of Angels that depicted not so much a fallen angel, but an angel who chose a corporeal form, which, as you've pointed out, it would not be what would happen.
Wouldn't look like Roma Downey.
No, but that also as well. But
Touched by an Angel. Wasn't that Touched by
that
an
was
Angel?
Touched by
Yes.
an Angel, right? This one
But
was with Nick Cage.
yeah.
It was probably, I think it's one of the last really, really good movies he did in terms of a normal movie. But
Dear.
well, I'm just, he's, speaking of going off the rails, his movie choices have gotten a little odd. But it was, it visualized sort of like the angelic host in a way that I had never seen before. And I was like, wow, that's an interesting perspective on that. Nothing I would follow, nothing that impacted my formation, but I'm always looking at, like, anytime Hollywood takes a chance at representing Catholicism and our general beliefs and Christian beliefs in some way that isn't to make fun of us, I try to gravitate to that.
There's something weird about human nature too. It's like you mentioned about the openness because we don't know too much about it, but on the opposite side of that equation is human curiosity. We're open to mystery.
Yeah.
So I'm always wondering. You see those horror flicks or sometimes other TV shows or whatever, where somebody hears a sound, the door cracks, and they can't help themselves but. Against all prudent judgment, to kind of walk in dark,
Don't go up the stairs.
Don't go up the stairs. Especially when you know that there's like a killer on the loose and they're doing
exactly.
massively bad things. They almost can't like help themselves, and they end up. But that's how evil works. It entices you in, and it plays against your curiosity. And I remember when what was the other book? Not the Dan Brown, not Angels, the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah.
I remember I was living in the South Bronx at the time, and people would come up. Well, it might be true. No, it might not be. It simply isn't.
Yeah.
What's true is what's in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, which is in the sacred scriptures. Dan Brown does not get to create new truths. It doesn't work that way. But there's something in our I guess in our culture that we always look for that angle. Maybe there's and isn't that satanic? We fail to trust God at His word.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Satan did at the very beginning.
Well, if not satanic, certainly humanist, in the sense that we're putting our perspective beyond that of what is truth in our world. And man, I agree with you. I think you're absolutely right. I think the human mind is we like to fill in the holes, and we will fill them in with whatever seems interesting and semi-plausible, and that's how you go down these weird paths. I have a couple of witchcraft friends who from my youth back in the day, not people I've cultivated recently, but I'll see their social media posts and I'll go, well, I can't get my mind wrapped around that.
If I were you, I'd be praying, fasting, and doing almsgiving, because you don't know what hex to put on you now, Mike.
Maybe they like me. Maybe I'm one of the good ones. Who knows? But nice to everybody. But no, it's true though, but I also think that because there's no set definition in some of these other perspectives, it's easy to gravitate to that. People will often say, well, it's. I tell people all the time, it's difficult to be a Catholic. You want to be heroic, go be a Catholic. Because even beyond the last couple of months, it's not easy to do because we have a belief structure that's A, based in truth, and B, some would refer to it as rather rigid. But there's a reason for all those things. Those weren't created to make life rigid. They were created to protect us from the reach of the devil. Right, Pete?
Yeah.
Even though you apparently
Well
want to become a hobbit. I like that about you. That's very nice.
I would love to just go to,
you want to go to Hobbiton?
Yeah, I do. I want to go to the Shire and just, grow plants and smoke pipe weed maybe. And,
hey, listen, whatever you're into, I'm not here to cast a
eat a
judgment.
drink beer, and I don't, those movies were, and the books too, are just, they're some of my favorite.
Isn't the Shire like the concept of Paradise Lost? It's sort of this.
I think.
Was it Paradise Lost? I don't think it was.
Paradise Lost was Milton.
No, I don't mean that. I mean the concept of the Shire, because it was all happy-go-lucky kind of place, but
yeah.
But
you mean like the Garden of Eden? Like that's
like
what it was supposed to be.
Sort of,
Okay, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
But then if you remember at the very end of the whole trilogy, they go back to the scouring of the Shire because Saruman has corrupted it.
Right.
So they have to basically kick him out, and that maybe is that kind of what you're like.
Yeah, basically, it's
so
sort of
they have to save.
Analogy. Yeah.
Yeah. So and talking about angels, one of the Mike was mentioning that movie Michael, there's we talked about It's a Wonderful Life, and then there's also the Angels in the Outfield. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that.
Yes.
Okay,
wait. The good angels in the outfield or the not good angels in the outfield? It's a big difference.
Christopher Lloyd.
Nope.
Angels, no.
You got to go to the one back from the 50s, 60s. The black and white version.
I never
See
saw
that
that
one.
one.
See
Classic.
the original.
Okay.
Wasn't there one with Paul Hogan in it too? Where wasn't he like an angel or something like that?
He was an angel in a movie. I don't think it was a baseball one though.
No, it wasn't baseball.
Yeah, it was
like,
something else.
It was like a Crocodile Dundee follow-up or something in that era.
I don't remember what that movie was, but
I don't. And
It's funny how
then-
these things kind of come back to you, and then of course
then they jump right out again.
Michael Mann, Highway to Heaven.
I wish I could remember what the name of the
Oh,
actor's
here,
name was.
okay. Almost an Angel.
Almost angel.
There you go.
Petty thief Terry Dean involved in a car accident that appears to claim his life. Charlton Heston played God. Oh, that's interesting.
Probably better, more credible than George Burns.
That's right in that movie. But see what, and this is a good segue because we go from Halloween to All Saints Day, which is about Laurie and I we've spent time talking about many saints and how we honor them that day, and also but All Souls is the second, right? November 2nd. So what's the difference between All Saints and All Souls, Laurie?
Okay. Well, All Saints Day, we of course honor all the saints that might not have a particular feast day or memorial, so everyone in heaven. All Souls Day would be for any of our deceased loved ones that perhaps might be in purgatory, that we want to pray for them and remember them on that day in particular.
Okay.
So it might be useful to kind of just talk about purgatory since it's kind of coming up, because a lot of people don't understand the concept of purgatory. But purgatory is another doctrine of Catholic faith that you must believe. In fact, the church teaches what are called the four final things, or the four last things: heaven, death, judgment, heaven, and hell. Purgatory doesn't come up in it because it's not actually a final state of affairs. So people fear purgatory in the sense that they think of it more like hell. They think of it as a little hell. They think of it as if I don't watch my step in purgatory, I'm going to fall into hell, that kind of a thing. There was a book by Tan Publishers called Purgatory. It's a black cover with orange and flames on it. Father Groeschel used to rail against that book because he says it completely is not what purgatory is. And he takes his source as St. Catherine of Genoa, one of the saints, in his understanding of purgatory. But purgatory is actually kind of like the doorstep of heaven. I often think of it like this. I mean, there's different ways I describe it, but if you're ever in like a dark room sleeping, and you wake up in the morning and you go and you turn your bathroom light on and it's that bright light, your eyes can't take in what it's seeing. To me, that's almost like that purgatorial experience. We come into the presence of God, but our eyes have not adjusted yet. We're not capable of receiving the full light of God into us. So there's this final adjustment that has to take place.
Purification.
Purification, yeah. There's something lacking in our ability to love, so there's some self-love that's inordinate within us. We need to be purified of our final stains of sin. But if you're in purgatory, look, you made it. We speak of them as the holy souls of purgatory. Sometimes we say the suffering souls of purgatory, in the sense that not that they're like in hellfire. The fires of hell is that you're irredeemable at that point. You can't get out. You see the effects of your sin and you're stuck there, and it's just eternal pain. It's a painful fire. But the pains of purgatory are more the seeing the missed opportunities of the good that you could have done that you didn't do, the imperfections, and and just that longing and waiting for the fullness of God's presence to be manifest in a way that you can receive according to your grace in heaven. So we pray. The souls in purgatory can do nothing to pray for themselves or to help themselves. It's a purely selfless place, but they can do nothing to help themselves. So the only way that they can be helped is by the prayers of the faithful. That's why we have masses offered. We just started at Christ the Redeemer, the Purgatorial Society, for masses in honor of the Sacred Heart on the first Fridays of each month, to have devotions to the Sacred Heart for the holy souls. So it's an important final purification. St. Paul writes about being saved through fire, right? We think of fire as, again, a painful thing, but what was it that purified the apostles and turned them from cowards into great, courageous men? It was fire. The burning bush was a fire that didn't consume the bush. It's entering into that fullness of God's love in a unique way that we haven't experienced yet, that purifies us but does not destroy us in any way, if that makes sense.
I think that's one of the better. I've heard that too, and I think the thing for me is we never quite know. It's purgatory, but we don't. I mean, the people we're praying for could have made it into heaven already. I mean, kind of, right? Like, we just don't know, but we pray for them anyway.
Yes,
right.
Exactly. Yes.
So, I mean, I'm not going to stop praying to someone if they're in heaven.
Maccabees chapter 12, I think, is verses 44 and following, something like that, talks about praying for the deceased is a pious and noble thing, so, and it's filled with hope that, that there is life after death, and that, that the dead will rise. That's what Judas Maccabeus believed. It was kind of a new strand in Jewish thought, but it was a precursor to our own understanding of praying for the dead.
So I know a lot of Catholics that are just sort of aiming for purgatory.
I thought you were going to just I thought you were going to stop the sentence there. I know
just
a lot
know
of
Catholics. Period. No, I do. That's true.
That's good.
They
That's
seem
good,
to
Laurie.
just be aiming for purgatory, like, I just want to make it to purgatory. And really, like, that's not. I don't think that's what the Lord wants for us. So we need to be aiming for heaven. And St. Therese always used to say, if you are looking for God's justice, that's what you're going to get. So we want to seek his mercy and ask for heaven. I mean, that's what she did. And I think that's how she got there.
What an interesting concept. I've never heard of anyone just shooting for purgatory.
I've met people that say, I just need a toe in purgatory. And they
Wow.
know you're in heaven,
Well,
right?
If you aim for heaven, you might make it to purgatory. If you aim for purgatory,
Exactly.
You might miss.
You don't want to miss.
You might aim
So-
low.
Isn't that kind of like,
So we need to be saints.
Take it from a Marine. Aim high.
Aim high.
but I think that's kind of indicative of the culture, Laurie. It seems, people want to do the bare minimum. Get
Right.
that term paper done. They don't want to do, I think I've heard that phrase, mediocrity or just good is the enemy of great. Like, we're just fine.
No. It's actually the other way around.
What is
Great is the enemy of good. Don't wait for perfection to stop you from doing something that's good. So it's actually you don't want to. Yeah, that's not you.
Probably a both and though.
Yeah. But I'm a big fan of
balance.
like, okay, I'm going to do my best to get it good, but man, if I can get it perfect, that'd be even better.
See, well, I talked about somebody who was talking about cleaning their house for visitors, and like, well, if I can just get it good enough, I'm fine. And I love her. I love her to death.
I'm on her side, by the way.
Well,
That's exactly how I clean my house.
You just see my office right now.
That's right. So if it's my family coming over, it's good enough. If it's colleagues and coworkers or anybody that can give me a promotion, it's going to be a little nicer.
So what about me, Mike? What if I come in?
He doesn't clean up at all.
I'm not on the level.
I'm not even going to open the door. But,
He's sending out for pizza.
that's right.
Oh, man.
No home cooked meal for you.
No, I'll just be the stranger left at the porch, I guess.
Oh.
That's right. We don't open.
Oh.
We
Everybody out there go all together.
We
Aw.
welcome the stranger. We keep the Pete at bay.
Oh.
That's how it goes.
Wow.
Well, I guess I'm not good enough. But anyway, we're just talking about that good enough. So
I know.
it's just like, anyway.
That's good.
So as we wrap down, I'm sure.
Thank you for saying it.
two references in the Catechism that I would be remiss if I didn't give. We quoted Lateran 4 earlier, but I'm not going to read these to you. But if you want to Google them or look them up in your Catechism, it's paragraph 328 and paragraph 391. 328 deals with the existence of angels, and 391 specifically deals with satanic beings or demons. So, but the surrounding paragraphs are also relevant, but those would be the most salient.
Oh, that's great. We'll definitely do that. All right. I think we have wrapped. I think we have answered all the questions there are about angels and demons. Nice job, everybody. Remember, don't go to your tarot card readers, your psychics, or have a Ouija board in your house. Although I'm sure all of us have done that. That was actually one of the first
And
things.
if you do, go to confession.
That was actually one of the first dates my wife and I ever went on. She convinced me to go see a tarot card reader. And I only went once because, I wanted to date her. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go. But before we started dating, that was something she would do. Like her grandmother would take her out to go to tarot, because that was something that was. I mean, for them, it was just an entertainment thing. She didn't put any stock in it, except for when she did. That was disconcerting. But I'm happy to say, in the last 19 years, I don't think the missus has had any tarot card readings or any psychic visits. So unless you're doing it on the down low, but not that I'm aware of. She's more focused on going to her Saturday Mass and extra Saturday Mass, right? Yeah, so won't come to Mass, any of my Masses, though. She doesn't like, well, you know what it is? We had something going on.
What are your Masses, Mike?
when I have to... That's right. I say Mass every... No, whenever
the gray Mass. It's not quite black. It's not quite white. It's the Mike Mass. It's the gray Mass.
No. Whenever I'm covering something, covering something for the bishop, or like we just had the diaconate ordination, I was trying to convince her to go. She was going to go to her usual Saturday haunt with our son, and I said, well, honey, I have this Mass up in Cherry Hill. You can come with me. The bishop will be there. Well, a bunch of deacons are going to be ordained. And she's like, nah, it's not the same when you're working a Mass. Just looking at you walking around the whole time. I said, all right, if I'm distracting, that's no good at all. Better to be focused on Christ than your dumb husband. So I know, but seriously, as a distraction, yes. So I don't mind that. So anyway.
Though if she's never been to... Go ahead, Pete.
No, Mike, she loves you. It doesn't sound like she can take her eyes off you. Like if she were a Mass, you would just
there
be
you
that
go.
distracted.
I never look. You're making Father Man almost choke.
Almost.
No, I never thought of it that way. That's a good way of putting it. I will mention that to her this evening, that I'm too distracting. What were you going to say, Laurie?
If she's never been to a priestly ordination, that would be one she shouldn't miss.
Well,
so,
we've only ever been to one.
Try to get her to that. Oh, good. Okay.
We've been to one. We went to take when Father Bartolomeo was ordained.
Very nice.
We were at
Good.
his back before, when we could just call him Jim. But I think that's the last one she's been to.
Wow.
And I now get to go to them all. So, though we won't have one this year, but we will have our transitional deacons in the spring. We're very much looking forward to that. But I think we're going to wrap up for right now, sir.
Can we make a special announcement? Should we hold off about what's going on in December?
Well, we've talked about it on the podcast. I don't know how special of an announcement it is.
Well,
certainly at the 1 hour and 1 minute and 22 second mark might be very hidden comment.
No, I hope them. Let's announce it now, but we'll push it. I mean, we haven't really talked about when it's going to be or where.
Hey, man, you're the one that didn't include it in the news items as we started out. You went through this litany of other news, all these boring things that are going around.
Good argument and just get to it.
I know. Tell us what's happening.
Okay, I'm gonna.
You know what? Actually, I'm actually a little angry right now because we should have led with that since we have two of the people who are going to be at this event.
Well, we'll just say, we'll stay till the end. Because you're going to miss it. This is the teaser for the Marvel teaser that you have to stay. The credit scene.
Okay. When you write the blurb today, along with the other blurb that I need for the last podcast, don't make that sound. Definitely include the teaser for the end of this. I agree.
Okay. And basically, what Mike and I are pleased to announce that we're having the 100th episode. It's a live recording of Talking Catholic at the Collegium Center for Faith and Culture. That will be Friday night, December 14th. Starting at 7 p.m., we're going to have live music, audience participation. We're going to have special guests here with Laurie Power and Father Chris Mann.
Yeah,
we'll be there.
The idea is to have about 8 of our top listener guests. All of our hosts will be there. It'll be myself and Pete and Laurie and Marianella Nunez, who's been a host before, and I think we got a couple others in the back
Carrie
pocket.
Janice
Father Sinatra,
yeah.
Carrie Janice,
and
then the CFR sisters we're hoping to be able to get up, and so and then everybody who's ever been on the podcast is invited, and all of our listeners are invited as well. So yeah, it's a big deal. So we'll continue to promote that as we go along. We haven't figured out if we're going to do a cost yet and what kind of food we're going to have or if there's going to be any cost at all. But the plan, trust me, if it's like anything else I do, it'll be a free will donation kind of thing.
No,
so,
Mike, you're a baker, so you can bake something.
Yeah, we'll have
I've
food.
heard this the last time I was here,
yeah,
too.
I'm a baker.
Scones,
yeah, well, that's oh yeah,
scones.
That's right. I made scones right before you came the last time, but I bake anything. So and that'll be right into the Christmas season. So I probably, 100th podcast will probably be taking me away from baking, as a matter of fact, because I usually bake the second weekend of December.
There is a kitchen at the Collegium Center, Mike. We have to go visit.
I'm very particular
the
about my
smell of
baking.
Cookies while we're
There's an idea.
Good idea.
See, that's the thing. Passers-by will be walking down the road and will smell the cookies.
You know
and
what?
come in.
You've been wanting to do a poll on all these things. Maybe we can poll the prospective audience as to what I should bake for the event.
Okay, we'll do that. And but basically, this time on the 14th is to say thank you to all of our loyal listeners. We're so excited, and thank you to our guests too. And Laurie and Father Chris, you are too. Our hearts are. It's wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for getting to 100. So.
Yeah, no, it's we're very excited about it. I can't believe anybody thought we'd ever hit 100. Well, we haven't hit 100 yet, so let's see if we got what? This is episode number 92, so we got 7 more to go before we hit 100.
Yeah,
So.
we'll get there, Mike.
Yeah, really, who's the next podcast after this one? No idea. We'll figure it out when we get there.
We will. God will provide.
That's
Not
right.
worry.
Amen.
He hasn't let us down yet, I'll tell you that.
No, but Mike.
Hey, maybe we can have an angel or demon.
No demon.
Oh, no
Talk to an
demons.
angel.
Wait,
Okay,
Mike Trout's an angel, and he's from Millville.
Hey, listen, if Mike Trout wants to be on this podcast, he can be our first non-Catholic. That's fine. I'm fine with that.
I don't know if we could.
Shush. All right. Well, just remember the World Series starts this week, and I will be in Europe for almost its total entirety. So you'll have to text me and let me know what's going on.
Well, I'll let Rod Herrera,
Yeah, I will. Oh, yeah.
who is a big Dodgers fan, the biggest Dodgers fan I know. He must be very excited right now.
Yep. Go Sox. All right. So we're going to wrap it up. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thanks for having
short
us.
notice. This was great. And Pete, thanks for putting this all together as always.
Thank
And
you,
to our
Mike.
listeners, thanks for listening. We will talk to you next week.